Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt Live. We're discussing the issue of Islamic unity. Is it a myth, or can it indeed be a reality? We are honored to have with us the renowned speaker and lecturer, Imam Said Moustafa Al-Qazwini. Said Moustafa Al-Qazwini, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Prior to the break, we were experiencing some technical issues. I understand we didn't have sound for about 10 minutes. So for the benefit of our dear viewers, we will try to summarize that which we discussed prior to the break. Said Qazwini, we were making reference to the fact that although the Quran and the Hadith may refer to the companions in a certain way, and the Shias adopt this understanding, and therefore their understanding is not contrary to the Quran or the Sunnah, the question that I put to you was the fact that when you have a difference of interpretation as to what the Quranic verse means and what the corresponding hadith say, and when you have an issue or a situation where you have a companion who the Sunni brothers believe is wonderful and great and should be emulated, but where the Shias believe he is not wonderful, he is not great, and is not worthy of emulation, surely Islamic unity under such circumstances would be very precarious.
Yes, because the Holy Quran does not speak about details, who's who. Does not say that Mr. Fulan and Mr. this and Mr. that are hypocrites and bad. The Quran always sets the standards, general standards. Then we come and see which one applies to these standards and which one does not. And also there is a supplement to the Holy Quran, which is the Sunnah, the Hadith of the Prophet. And in the Sunnah of the Prophet there is always room for fabrication. Therefore there is a mechanism to purify and authenticate the sayings of the Prophet through ilm al-hadith, ilm al-rijal, ilm al-diraya. These are mechanisms that were created to discover and analyze, the authenticity of what the Prophet said. There were lots of fabrications. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that, He said, this book, the Holy Quran, I'm going to protect it. There is no increase or decrease in this book. But when it comes to the Sunnah, it's open for additions. It's open for removing certain things from the Sunnah. So in both traditions, there are mechanisms to find what hadith is right and what hadith is wrong, rejected. And through the Sunnah of the Prophet, we know through the lifestyle of the Prophet, through his history, through the details of his daily life, whether he was in peace at the city of Medina, or he was during a military excursion, a battle outside Medina. We know who stood with the Prophet and who turned against him, who was loyal to him and who was disloyal to him, who was faithful to him and who was not faithful. And I mentioned this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tawbah, in chapter 9, He says to the Prophet, "O Prophet, sometimes you don't know who's who. You do not know the reality of the people around you, some of them. Even I did not allow you to know. I am the only one who knows about them." See, to this extent, so that even the Prophet himself sometimes, not all the times, لا تعلمهم. God said there are hypocrites that even you, Ya Rasulullah, who's supposed to know everything, you don't know them. For a reason. For a reason we withhold their names from you. So this means that there were hypocrites. They are not entirely purified 100%. But through the hadith, through the seerah of the Prophet. The seerah of the Prophet was detailed in so many volumes, encyclopedias. So when you read it there, how do you know? Let me ask you this, Brother Ali. How do you know that this person is good or he's not good? How do you know that?
Well, you get it from...
You don't make a surgery and open his heart, and you don't do that. From his lifestyle, from his conduct, from his actions.
But this is a problem, isn't it? Because when you've got different versions of the seerah, so the Sunnis have one version that would suggest that certain companions are loyal and faithful, as you put it.
So you have to go after the correct one.
Yeah, but
nowadays, anything happens anywhere in the world. When it is reported, it's going to be reported in different ways. Okay? One of them says, no, the guilty side is that one. The other comes and says exactly the opposite. The smart person, okay, who wants to investigate, he has to go and listen to all and then try to find out through investigation. When it comes to crime, how do we know that this is guilty and that one is implicated and a criminal? It's through a very lengthy process of investigation. So there are some people who investigated the history of Islam. They put the pieces together. When you investigate, it would not be ambiguous anymore. It will be very clear to you. We have now a book called As-Sahih min Sirat al-Nabi, the authentic. And the guy spent 40 years putting the pieces together. And then you will find out. You will find out that this is the life of the Prophet. This is exactly what he said. This is exactly what he did. Because there are lots of misconceptions that the Prophet said something, but when you go and investigate, you find out at the end, no, this story came after the time of the Prophet, attributed to the Prophet himself.
If we undertook such meticulous research, surely then unity would not be necessary, because the whole world, all non-Shias would become Shias, wouldn't they? The fact is that because people for whatever reason aren't willing or don't undertake this meticulous research, they believe that their understanding, based on their research, these companions, whatever it may be, are righteous. The Shias believe these guys are not righteous. We believe that they're worthy of emulation. We believe that they're not worthy of emulation, whereas the Sunnis may believe that they are worthy of emulation. So the fact is that, yes, you can go through this meticulous search, but if you were to do that, the likelihood is you'd probably become a Shia, and then unity would not be necessary in the first place. But let's assuming that
unity among the Shias themselves,
which we'll discuss.
Unity, even when you have your own family, you have to have unity. Unity not only with others, unity among ourselves first.
But what do we do in this scenario where you've got different interpretations?
Yes.
And people are saying, look, I like this guy because based on my interpretation, this companion is worthy of following.
We have a solution.
You don't like him.
We have a solution.
Is there a solution?
First of all, Ali Ridha, do you know that those who became Shia, they did not wake up in the morning and we saw a dream. God came to my dream and said, listen, change from this school to that school. Never. They went through the process of investigation. They reviewed their whole entire understanding of Islam. They started from zero. They went through the true history of Islam, true interpretation of the Quran, then they became Shia. So they found out the reality. Now, does this opportunity available for all people? No, no. Small minority, small minority. Now, what do we do with the rest who still believe that the true leaders of Islam is such and such and such? Okay? Still we can have unity with them and understanding, provided that we respect them. We respect them. We have nothing personal against them, okay? We try to talk to them nicely, and we should not curse those that they believe are infallible or sinless, okay? In the same fashion that we think that Imam Ali is infallible, and he's truly infallible according to the Quran, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ 33 in the Quran. In the same fashion, others believe that this caliph and that caliph and this companion and that companion are infallible and sinless. Okay? Here, we should not curse. We should dialogue in a nice way. I always say that you could make the other side understand your point without being harsh, without cursing him. Say it nicely, politely, Be firm. Don't, don't compromise. Do not compromise. Speak the truth, Brother Ali. Speak the truth. Say the truth. Don't conceal it. Don't be diplomatic, but be polite. There is a difference between lying, okay, and being polite. Lying, you are not telling him the truth, okay? But being polite, you are telling him the truth, but in a nice way.
Sure. You make reference that we should not curse, right? Now, the problem with that is, yes, perhaps we should not curse when it comes to lectures or on television, which we know, and we'll deal with such issues later on in the show. But the question is, we're in the month of Muharram. We know that it's highly rewarding to read supplications, the Ziyat of Ashura, for example, where clearly the Shias are cursing someone. And presumably, whoever this curse relates to is not something that the Sunnis will necessarily agree with. So what do we do? What do we do in the case of these supplications? Do we just do away with them, amend them, take some bits out?
Cursing is different than swearing. We have two things. We have to distinguish between them. Quran says, do not swear, but he did not say don't curse. Because the first one who was cursing is God himself in this book, in the holiest book, the Holy Quran. Inna Allah la'ana al-munafiqeen. This is a verse. أُولَٰئِكَ يَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّاعِنُونَ. Certain people, God curses them, and people curse them. So cursing is not forbidden, because it is different from swearing and bad-mouthing.
Right.
There is a difference between them. Bad-mouthing is to say bad words to someone, bad description, okay? But cursing is prayers, supplication, prayers, specific form of dua and supplication. You ask Allah not to bestow His mercy on such and such. And this is an Islamic tradition. This was performed by God himself, by the Prophet himself, by the community of the believers. La'an is different than sab. La'an is cursing, meaning that may God not embrace you with His mercy.
Sure.
At-tardu min rahmatillah. While sab is bad-mouthing and swearing and maligning. This is what we should not do. Imam Ali said to his companions during sometime during the Battle of Siffin, when he saw them bad-mouthing Muawiyah, he said, no, do not bad-mouth him. Inni akrahu lakum an takunu sabbabin. But tell the people what Muawiyah did. That's enough. That's enough. Go and tell the people about what he did to Islam and to the Muslims. You don't have to bad-mouth him and say he's this and he's that and his mother is this and his mother, and use bad words. You don't have. This is not the ethics of Islam. So what you said specifically, let me address your question about Ziyarat Ashura. Ziyarat Ashura, when we say La'anallahu ibn Ziyad or Ibn Marjana or Yazid or Muawiyah, we are asking the Lord because of what they did to Islam first, to the Prophet of Islam second, to the family of the Prophet of Islam third, to the city of Medina. Yazid made Medina free zone for 3 days. And this is not a Shia story. This story has been mentioned in every single history book in Islam. That Yazid, after the murder of Imam Hussein, his next achievement as a caliph was to send his troops from Syria. They entered the city of Medina. They made it free zone. Free zone means that you can steal, you can rape, you can kill, you can destroy. Nobody would stop you. 3 days. Okay? 10,000 of the memorizers of the Quran were murdered in these 3 days. Then after that, the following year, he attacked the city of Mecca. Kaaba was destroyed. So not only Islam was attacked, or the Prophet or his family, Mecca and Medina. What is left of Islam? Here I am saying, may God not embrace him with his mercy. Is this a crime? This is not a crime. And I want our Sunni brothers and sisters to understand that all what we are saying, exactly what God said. God said, those who worked against me, they are not going to receive my mercy. This is the meaning of la'an.
I mean, if I were to go up to someone in the street who I deem to be my friend and say, may Allah withdraw His mercy from you, or may Allah, not bestow you with His mercy, and someone else believes that this guy is a really decent, pious chap and says, may Allah bestow you with abundant mercy, there's a conflict, there's a contradiction, is there not? I mean,
no, there is no conflict.
Why is there no conflict?
Because if you go to him and tell him, you killed my father, you killed my mother, you killed my children, you destroyed my house, you took my wealth away from me, you destroyed my life, may God not bestow His mercy on you. Anyone who listens to you will say, you are right. You are right. You have been wronged. You have been destroyed. Okay? And this is exactly what we say in Ziyarat Ashura. First, we are stating their crimes, what they did against God, Allah, against the Prophet of God, against his family, against the sanctity of Islam. Then we are saying. So if one would read this ziyarah with open-mindedness, with an open heart, with an understanding, he would realize that this is correct.
When there are such deep-rooted differences, because we know that the issue of the companions is something which is very contentious, and and I'm sure you yourself as well may have met very prominent individuals from the Sunni school of thought, and they just find this very difficult to understand. They'll accept everything else, but this issue relating to the companions, they find very difficult to understand. We love them, you don't love them.
Yeah.
We follow them, you don't follow them, and in fact would probably encourage people actively not to follow them, much less not following them. I mean, how can we, just to bring this topic to its conclusion, is unity possible under such difficult circumstances?
I agree with you, Brother Ali, that this is one of the most contentious subjects in the history of Islam itself, that we have been accused that you hate the companions and you hate the wives of the Prophet. But this is not the real story. This is what have been perceived in the Wahhabi media, just in the same way, in the same fashion that Muslims in the West, in Britain, in Europe, in North America, and their religion, and their book, and their prophet have been perceived as being evil. Today, 90%, 95% of the American people believe that Islam is a bad religion. Quran is a terrible book. Muhammad is a religion of a prophet of violence and bloodshed. Is this true? This is not true. This is what it has been portrayed in the media. The Wahhabi media has been working for many decades to portray the Shia as having nothing to do. From morning till evening we curse the companions. Is this the case? Is this what you do at home?
No.
Huh? During your prayers, 5 daily prayers, during Hajj, during Ramadan, during Tahajjud, is this what you do? How many times you curse the companions of the Prophet a day? Huh? Let me ask you, how many times?
Not enough times to
I don't
recall.
curse. I don't curse. I don't curse. And I'm not shy of anyone. I'm not being diplomatic. I don't fear anyone. I don't fear punishment. I live, alhamdulillah, in a place where I can have my integrity, my security. But I don't do that. I don't do that. Because this is not our tradition. This is what we have been portrayed. Why they say this? So to create a gap between you as a Shia and other Muslims, that don't get close to them, because they hate the companions of the Prophet. We don't hate them. We don't hate them. We praise them. Why do we go to the battlefield of Uhud? In fact, the one who hates the companions are the Wahhabis. Have you been to Hajj? Have you been to Hajj?
Yes.
Have you been to Medina?
Yes.
Have you been to the Uhud? Would they allow you to go and pay tribute to the martyrs of Uhud? Do they allow you? They say no, this is shirk.
Yes.
Who are buried in Uhud? 70 of the companions of the Prophet. We go and pay tribute to them. We go and say salam to them. We go and say Fatiha to them. If we hate the companions of the Prophet, would we go inside, take this trip to the battlefield of Uhud and pay tribute to them? Do we go to Baqi', where many of the companions of the Prophet are buried there, and we recite Fatiha for them? We love the Sahaba of the Prophet. We love the Sahaba. We don't say all of them were terrible. We say few of them. Few of them. Few of them, yes. Some people at the top in the leadership, they did not do good. Besides, we don't go and curse them in the marketplace. There are some people, I'm not denying this. I'm not denying this. There are certain people, they might even use the television, the media, the internet to malign them. But this is not the tradition of the mainstream or the majority of the Shia leadership, maraja, scholars, theologians, intellectuals. This is what, because the way that you've been portrayed, that you have nothing to do, no recitation, you don't read the Quran, you don't read any dua, you keep cursing, for instance, such and such and such. We don't do this.
But when you refer to cursing, are you referring to cursing or swearing? I mean, because
even the cursing, even the la'an. How many times you do la'an to certain people? How many times? I mean,
so one would argue the so-called extremists, if you want to use that terminology, would say, well, the fact that I responded that I don't curse, I couldn't remember, or I couldn't recall.
Listen, Ali Ridha, cursing, la'an is not wajib to do la'an. None of our imams, infallible imams, said it is wajib that you curse, la'an, not swearing, such and such. None of them said. What is important is at-tabarri min awliya'illah, to detach yourself, at-tabarri min a'da'illah, at-tawalli li awliya'illah wa at-tabarri min a'da'illah, to affiliate yourself and feel sympathy, okay, an affiliation with awliya'ullah, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the top of them, the messengers, the prophets, our imams, and at-tawalli min a'da'illah, which is that you declare that you have nothing to do, no relationship. You declare detachment from them. This is what is wajib. That you don't follow their tradition, because the tradition is wrong. The tradition is not the sunnah of the Prophet. It's not the sunnah of the Prophet. Okay? This is what you have to declare. But to declare la'an and to say that, it's not wajib. Nobody said you have to do this. If you don't do this, you are not a Muslim. You are not a follower of Ahlulbayt.
Well, that brings us very neatly again onto another break. You're watching Ahlulbayt live on Ahlulbayt TV. After the break, we'll inshallah talk a little bit about how we can enhance unity within our own community, and how we can address some of the issues that do affect us. We do know, with utmost respect to Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini, of course, many people may not agree with him. Many would argue that, no, we should continue cursing or whatever else, other terminology you want to use. How can we try to overcome this as a community with a view to bridging unity with our fellow brethren in faith? And we'll also try to deal with some of the common misconceptions that we have concerning the faith of Shia Islam. See you shortly. Please keep watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt Live. We're discussing Islamic unity, myth or reality. We are delighted to have with us the scholar, author and lecturer, Imam Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini. Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini, thank you very much indeed for joining us again. Prior to the break, we were talking a little bit about how we can encourage unity between Sunnis and Shias and the Islamic Ummah generally. We're now going to talk specifically for a short while about enhancing unity within our own community. Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini, many people would argue that it's very difficult to talk about unity amongst the whole global Ummah when the Shias themselves are so very divided. But also, let me ask you this question. You made reference to the fact that we should not swear, we should not be derogatory, we should not be insulting towards those who our Sunni brothers hold very dear to their hearts. But we know this does go on. It may be very well in theory saying it should not happen, but we do know during Muharram Majalis, on TV channels, you mentioned, you asked a question, do you curse the companions during your prayer? But yet when you go to YouTube, you'll find that certain Muslims on certain days do engage in that practice. How can we overcome this?
How many of the Muslims are doing that? How many of the Shias are really cursing the companions on YouTube?
They
see things that are very odd and strange, you find them on YouTube.
Yeah.
But things that are normal, healthy, you don't find them. YouTube was created, okay, for things that are strange, for things that are controversial. But when you go to the Shia mosques in Iraq, in Iran, East Africa, North Africa, Europe, North America, South America, Indian subcontinent, other places, how many mosques there you find that people in that mosque, they curse the companions? None, none. Maybe one or two individuals among 450 million followers of Ahlulbayt worldwide, maybe a handful, to be realistic, handful of them. And those handful, you see them on YouTube, and they tell you they represent Shia.
What about during Muharram Majalis, for example?
I don't think so. I think if you make a survey in the whole world, don't just look at a couple of geographic areas. Most of them, they don't do that. Most of them, yes, I said the issue of la'an is different. Even the la'an is not being practiced. Even this, which I believe is legitimate, because the meaning of it is at-tardu min rahmatillah, not to be embraced with God's mercy, and God is the first one. This is His tradition. If it is wrong, why should He do it? This is the tradition of His Prophet, who is my example, who is my leader. I have to emulate him. He cursed some hypocrites. He did that. So I'm doing something perfectly legitimate. But still, what is the percentage of the Muharram sessions who do this la'an every night? 1%, 2%? I don't think the vast majority of them. I travel throughout the whole world during Muharram. I haven't seen people doing. People go there to listen to the lecture, and these lectures are all encompassing. They speak about family, youth, citizenship, your responsibility now at this time and age. It speaks about how to understand, have a better understanding of the history of Islam. Where do we stand today vis-a-vis the Prophet, his family, and others? Many other issues, many other contemporary issues. So it's not something which is common. It's not common. This is number one. Number two, in the same fashion that I ask my fellow Shia brothers and sisters to be civilized in their approach with their Sunni brothers and sisters, I also ask my Sunni brothers and sisters to be more open-minded, to be more intelligent, not to be naive, not to take things for granted, not just to read any book which says this is the seerah of the Prophet, okay, this is the Minhaj al-Sunnah, a book written by Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi, the one who is spearheading the hate against the Prophet and his family. And in some countries they promote this book, and for them this book is as sacred as the Holy Quran. They call it Minhaj al-Sunnah, the path of the Sunnah of the Prophet, while it is Minhaj, the path of hate, the path of conflict, the path of disinformation. If you read it, has nothing in this book, or only one thing in his mind, is to promote the hate against Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. 4 volumes, read it from cover to cover. He challenges every hadith by the Prophet in reference to Imam Ali, in praising him, he comes in, he says, no, the Prophet did not say this. Or the Prophet said this, but not regarding Ali. This was regarding another person. In this book, he puts down Ahlul Bayt and he promotes Muawiyah and the Umayyads. This is Minhaj al-Sunnah. I ask my Sunni brothers and sisters not to be misled by someone who was hate monger, lived 700 years ago, 700 years ago, not even was close to the time of the Prophet and the caliphs. 700 years ago, he was sick to the extent that the Sunni scholars in Syria, they marginalized him, okay, ostracized him, and they said this guy does not represent authentic Islam, does not represent, and they put him in jail. They put him in jail for his audacity, for his fabrication. So I ask also my Sunni brothers and sisters that be more intelligent, be more wise. Try to understand what happened after the Prophet. There were many crises that took place. Read the history of Islam with open-mindedness. Try to investigate. Don't just believe everything that a person says. Go and read. Go do your homework and see what happened. And God promised us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. If you work hard, if you strive, struggle to understand the truth and reality, you will reach it. You will reach it. Provided that you are sincere. Provided that you don't say, I follow my father and my grandfather and my ancestors and they followed this Hanafi tradition, Shafi'i tradition, I have to remain for the rest of my life. Be open-minded. I always say, even to myself, to my family members, to my friends, to my audience, try to read more and more and more about the history of Islam. Don't take things for granted. There is no virtue in coming to God on the Day of Judgment and saying to Him, hey God, my mother was a Shia, therefore I became a Shia. My grandfather was a Shia, therefore I am a Shia. God says, this is not enough from you. It was good for your grandfather, good for your mother, but it's not good for you. I want you to know why you are a Shia. Give me a legitimate answer. Give me a legitimate answer. This is not good to say that, well, I saw Ali doing this, okay, having a cup of coffee, so I asked. No, I have to know, what is this? Is this good for my health or not? So the same thing when it comes to religion, okay? It is good for the parents to encourage their children, but to follow them blindly without knowing why we are Shia or why we are Sunni or why we are Muslim or why we are Hindu or Christians is not good. It's not good, because I have my own intelligence. I have my own intelligence. I have to investigate myself. I cannot say I remained Sunni because I saw the rest of my family are all Sunni, praising such and such, following this tradition. This is not enough for me. God is not going to accept this from me. This is a plagiarism. Plagiarism. If you go to the test and you find what your neighbor is doing and writing and you take it from him, would they consider this plagiarism or not? Definitely they will say. They will say, we need your own answers. We don't need your neighbor's answers. This is exactly what 99% of the Muslims are doing nowadays. Sure. He is born and raised in this environment and he sticks with it. And he does not give himself the courage to go and investigate. I always say that even a Shia should doubt himself sometimes and say, why I am a Shia? Maybe I am wrong. And he should go and read the basics, right from the foundations. And once you read this, this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. I didn't take it for granted. I come from a scholarly family. My entire family, forefathers are scholars and leaders. But when it came to me, I said, let me review our tradition. Maybe we are not right. So I went to the basics, from A to Z, and I did my own research. I did not depend on my father and my mother. And then I found out, yes, what we are following, it reconfirmed me that I was born again Shia through my own investigation. And this is what I invite all the people to do. All the people to do. I'm inviting our Sunni brothers and sisters that go and read the history of Islam. Read the history of Ahlulbayt. Ahlulbayt, they have been given to us as a gift from the God. from Allah. Why leaving them and going to others? Go and read. After you read, with bayinat, clear evidence, with proof according to the Quran, burhan, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ. Allah says, bring your evidence. Your evidence, not emotional evidence. You have to bring your reasonable evidence, your scientific evidence. Then, if you stay on your path, you are doing well. You are doing well. But the journey of investigation never ends and never stops.
Do you feel that as a community, we're doing enough to encourage unity between Muslims? We know that we have several opportunities to encourage the community to not behave in a derogatory manner towards our Sunni brothers and sisters, not to insult them, not to abuse them, and indeed, when we come across them, not to sort of jump on them with every single thing that we want to say to them about Bukhari said this, and Muslim said this, and Nisa'i said this, and just bombard them with narrations in the hope that they will, after 10 minutes of dialogue, become Shias. But do you feel that we're doing enough to train, number one, to encourage unity amongst Muslims? So are we using the platform that we have during Muharram and Ramadan, etc., to the utmost of their potential? And number two, in training individuals that do want to engage in a dialogue as to how they need to do it?
No, absolutely. We are not doing enough. All the Muslims are not doing enough. When it comes to understanding each other, we are doing exactly the opposite. Millions, rather hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by the Wahhabis on anti-Shia activities and propaganda that they worship graves, worshippers of graves. They don't worship God. And every year I tell them when I go to Hajj, I tell them if I worship graves, in the West we have the most beautiful, fantastic cemeteries. Why don't we go there and worship them? Why should we come to Kaaba? Why should we come to Mecca and Medina? Kaaba is the center of Tawheed monotheism. And because we are monotheists, we come to Mecca. Otherwise, one time a taxi driver told me that, he told me, are you Shia? I said, yes. He said, everything about you guys is good. Only one thing. I said, what is it? He said, you worship the stone. I said, then everything about us, if we worship the stone, everything about us is bad and terrible. I told him, did you see us worship the stone? He said, no, I didn't see, but my friend says the Shias, they worship the stone. I said to him, listen, I come from America, and we have the best gems and stones in the whole world. Why should I spend money and come all the way, 18 hours of flight, to Mecca and Medina? You just picked me up from Masjid al-Haram, not from a nightclub. I was there, next to the Kaaba. If I worship a stone, why should I come to Masjid al-Haram, here, okay? We are not worshipping stones. We put our forehead on the stone, and this is exactly what Prophet Muhammad did. He put his forehead on the floor, on the dirt, on the soil, on the ground, not on the carpet. So we are not worshipping the stones. Beside, is the Kaaba made of a stone? He said, yes. I said, don't we stand right before the Kaaba? The Imam here stands right before the Kaaba, all the Muslims? He said, yes. I said, is it right to say we are worshipping the stone, or we are worshipping the house? If someone comes and looks at the Muslims, they sanctify the Kaaba, it's in front of them, it's their Qibla, they bow before it. And if he says they worship the Kaaba, do we worship the Kaaba? He said, no, we worship the Lord of the Kaaba. I said, exactly, this is what we are doing. We put the stone to put our forehead on it, but we are not worshipping it. We worship Allah, and nothing but Allah Ta'ala. So I think we are not doing enough, because there is a lot of suspicion. There is a lot of negative understanding. There is a lot of negative media, books being printed, programs, okay, that describes the Shia as being polytheists, mushrikeen. This is what you hear. Mushrik, shirk, 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 shirk. This is the only thing you hear. So definitely we are not doing enough. And I am not blaming one side. I'm not blaming. And actually, what the Shia, some of them, very few small percentage of them, are doing in cursing, this is the reaction to the Wahhabis when they say, you are a non-believer, you are a non-Muslim, you are a polytheist. This is bid'ah, this is shirk. This is a reaction to that. So the problem started from the other side. When they come to a minority and they tell them, you are not a Muslim. What do you expect the minority to react? The vast majority of them are intellectuals and civilized, okay? They react in a good way. But we have a small who react maybe not in a good way. So I think we are both to be blamed. We are not doing enough.
Sure. All right. Thank you for the explanation there. And of course, that does bring this particular part of our discussion to its conclusion. And what I want to do in the second part of this show, and again, we welcome the views of our callers, 0203417842, should you wish to also engage in the discussion, is actually go through some of the misconceptions that you make reference to in your book, Inquiries about Shia Islam. In this particular book, you deal with several issues or topics that non-Shias have concerning the Shia school of thought, and you address them. This is just the book for the viewers, should you wish to actually purchase it for yourself. It goes through several issues, and we'll try and touch on some of them in this particular show. Some of the misconceptions that I want to make reference to are not only exclusive to the Sunni school of thought. Indeed, many within Shias themselves hold these misconceptions. And one such misconception is, for example, that the Shias hold the family of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, above the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, himself. So the argument goes as follows, that when it comes to the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, you spend 10 days in Muharram commemorating it. When it comes to the Shahada of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, you will only spend a day or a day or two. You will not give the same reverence to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, as you would to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, for example. How would you respond to that?
I respond in 3 steps. Number 1, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was asked one day by one of his companions that, are you better than Muhammad? Who's better, you or Muhammad? He said, Wayhak, innama ana abdun min abidi Muhammad. I am a slave of Muhammad. I am a slave of Muhammad. Although the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, according to even Sunni exegists, interpreters of the Quran, وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ, Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the soul of Imam Ali next to the soul of the Prophet, equal to it. Abu Bakr al-Razi, one of the iconic figures of exegesis, tafsir, and he's Sunni, he says this is an evidence that the soul of Ali is equal to the soul of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. But still Imam Ali refers to himself as being a slave of Muhammad. Okay? So we are not putting the family of the Prophet ahead of him. Now the example you cited, Ashura takes longer, 10 days, sometimes 2 months. Why 10 days? Muharram and Safar.
Yeah.
We have sessions worldwide, but the same thing when it comes to Prophet Muhammad we are not doing. Actually, in Ashura, we are promoting Prophet Muhammad. If you go to these sessions, I started the first day this year of my lecture that Muhammad and his family are the pioneers of monotheism. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are not talking about someone who's alien to Muhammad, who's an outsider, who's stranger, who has nothing to do with Muhammad. We are talking number one, we are addressing Prophet Muhammad himself, promoting him, praising him. And Prophet Muhammad himself, he says, you promote Hussein, you are promoting me. You speak about Hussein, you are speaking about me. You love Hussein, you love me. If you hate Hussein, you hate me. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari. أحب الله من أحب حسينا. حسين مني. Abu Huraira, the famous narrator, he says, Hussein was a child. maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, playing outside in the street. We were walking with the Prophet. Suddenly he saw Hussein among the kids. He started chasing him until he grabbed him, he kissed him, and he said, Husaynun minni. He is of me and I am of him. Ahabballah. May God bestow, may God loves the one who loves Hussein. So Ashura is about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Is about his sunnah, his way of life, his tradition. The revolution of Imam Hussein is about continuing the sunnah of the Prophet. He was not self-promoting. He was not engaged in self-promotion. He was not promoting himself. He himself, Imam Hussein says, إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My aim, my goal is not leadership, is not political dominance, is not to acquire this piece of land, not even to be a celebrity, a popular one so people praise me. One thing I have in my mind, to reform the sunnah of my grandfather Muhammad. So Ashura is about Muhammad, is about the Prophet, peace be upon him. We are not promoting someone else. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Beside the third point, if you ask me then, why when the Prophet dies, let's say on 28th of Safar, we are not doing, let's say, the same thing with the same caliber? Because this is a reward that God has given only to Imam Hussein. It does not mean that he's better than his grandfather. He's not. He's not. He's also the slave of his grandfather. Okay? He's the slave of the Prophet. But Hussein did something that is unique and unprecedented in the history of mankind. No prophet, no messenger except Yahya, and not in the same scale, on the same scale. This is why Imam Hussein used to remember Yahya ibn Zakaria, that he was beheaded and his head was given to one of the wicked women of the community of the Israelites. So no prophet, no messenger, no imam suffered the suffering of Imam Hussein, or gave his life, not only his life. Look at Jesus. The Christians believe that Jesus was crucified, and they created a movie, The Passion of the Christ. And when you see the movie, you weep. But even let's say, okay, which is not true, let's say the Christians are right. He was crucified, but only himself, not his family members, not his little baby, not his companions. His wife was not taken, his daughters, his sisters were not taken as captives from one neighborhood into another. Okay, the horses did not trample upon his body. Okay, they did not behead him, they buried him, Jesus. But these things happened to Imam Hussein, something unique. So God rewarded him for his generosity, for his sacrifice, for his martyrdom. God gave him what he did not give others. This is the working of the God. This is the divine of Allah. This is the work and the design of the divine of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That again brings us neatly to our next break. We'll be back very shortly. You're watching Ahlulbayt live on Ahlulbayt TV. We shall be back in a few minutes discussing other misconceptions that individuals may have concerning Shia Islam, with a view to fostering greater unity between the adherents of the Islamic faith at large. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahlulbayt live on Ahlulbayt TV. We're discussing the issue relating to Islamic unity. Is it a reality or is it simply a myth? We're going through various misconceptions that individuals have concerning Shia Islam in this particular part of the show. We are honoured to have with us the scholar, lecturer and author, Imam Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini. Again, Sayyidina, thank you very much indeed for taking the time out to be with us this afternoon.
Allah bless you, inshallah. Thank you.
We were going through the various issues that you discuss in your book, Inquiries About Shia Islam, that deals with several misconceptions that people have concerning our faith. Prior to the break, we spoke briefly about the allegation that we elevate the family of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, above the Prophet himself. Let's now deal with the subject matter of worshipping graves that you did touch upon previously. This is something that is a very pertinent misconception, that the Shias worship dead people. So you go to Medina, you stand in front of the Prophet's grave, may peace and blessings be upon him, and you engage in grave worship. And linked to this misconception is that you ask the Imams to help you. So when you say things like, Ya Ali Madad, for example, why go to the Imams? Why not go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala direct? So let's deal with the issue of grave worship. Why do Shias go to the grave of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, and indeed Sunnis as well, and say, Ya Muhammad? Why not simply say, Ya Allah?
First of all, this is a very universal ideal to go to the grave site. This is not just an Islamic idea. This is a universal and a global ideal, that when you go to a country, you visit the grave of the founder of that country, the reformer, the great person of that, civilization, and they do it all over the world. Why we do it, the Muslims? Because it's found in this book. Chapter 4, verse 64. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولو أنهم إذ ظلموا أنفسهم جاءوك فاستغفروا الله واستغفر لهم الرسول. When they wrong themselves, some Muslims, some of them hypocrites, some of them guilty, some of them wrongdoers, they come to you. They come to you. فاستغفروا الله. They seek forgiveness from the Lord. He is the bestower of forgiveness. وَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمَ الرَّسُولُ. The Prophet is going to intercede on their behalf. Number one, let's make it clear that we don't ask Imam Hussein himself for forgiveness, neither Imam Ali nor the Prophet, nor Lady Zainab or Lady Fatima al-Zahra. We don't pray to them, we pray through them. There is a big difference. The Christians today, they pray to Jesus, being the Lord. They ask for help, forgiveness, guidance, salvation from Jesus himself. Why? Because either they believe he's the Lord, he's God, or the Son of the God. But we don't believe that Muhammad is the Son of God or the God himself, neither about Imam Ali or Hassan or Hussein or Fatima al-Zahra. We don't worship them. We don't pray to them. We pray through them to God. We ask their help, their intercession, to give us a push here. Okay? Now you asked a very pertinent, very important question. God is available here. You can talk to him anytime. Why do you go to a secondary source? Number one, because God says, I want you to realize and understand and appreciate the value of the Prophet, the value of Imam Hussein, the value of Imam Ali. This is why I want you to go through them. I want you to go through them. وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةِ. I want you to go, because if you think that the Prophet is dead, he is irrelevant, you are not going to follow him anymore. You think that the Prophet lived 62, 63 years and now he's dead, as the Wahhabis claim, that he's dead and he cannot even help himself, he cannot listen to you, he cannot answer you, then he's irrelevant. He's irrelevant. Actually, I was asked this question 4 weeks ago in Medina. One of the scholars of Wahhabism, he said, you have God here, why do you turn to this side? He's dead. I said, if he is dead, why do you keep saying, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah? He's dead, he's expired. He's expired, his term has expired. Why do you mention him? Do people in this country mention King George V, for instance? Do they mention him now? Do you see his pictures on the currency? You don't see. His time has, he was a king, and now he's expired. Now we have the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen. Her pictures are, she is the Queen now. Now if the Prophet Muhammad is dead, why should we even bother to mention him? This means he's not dead, because the Holy Quran in 3 places says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا, do not ever say to the one who gives his life for the sake of God, he's dead. They are alive indeed. They understand, they can respond. And one of them was saying me that your quotation is wrong, because God is saying this about the martyrs. The martyrs are alive. I said, listen, a martyr who's an ordinary Muslim who accepted Islam from Prophet Muhammad is alive, and the leader, the founder, the messenger, Muhammad is dead. You are elevating the martyr above the Prophet. So he can hear us. God wants to say that they are still important. Do not bypass them. Do not neglect them. Do not say they are dead and he cannot do anything. Muhammad, whether he lived in Mecca or Medina, or whether today, the 21st century, he's always alive. He is always a source of inspiration. God wants to make the imams and the prophets the source of inspiration. This is number one. Number two, when you go and pray to him, you are acknowledging his tradition, his lifestyle, his manners, his akhlaq. And you're going to be inspired by his tradition. When you go and say, Ya Hussein, you are not worshipping Hussein, you are worshipping the Lord of Hussein. You are not asking Hussein himself, you are asking Allah through Hussein, through the holiness, the sanctity, the virtue of Hussein. Besides, you are interacting with the personality of Hussein, with his sacrifice, with his way of life, with his morality, with his ethics, with his values. So this is what God wants you to do, to interact with one of them. Because God does not have a physical entity. He does not come and sit on this seat next to you and he says, listen, this is the way I eat. This is the way I behave. This is the way I treat my wife and my children. This is the way I treat my friends and my enemies. He doesn't do that. How does he do that? How does he show me the way? Through representatives. Those representatives, sometimes his name is Noah, sometimes Abraham, sometimes Ishmael, sometimes Moses, sometimes Jesus, sometimes Muhammad, sometimes Ali, sometimes Fatima, sometimes Hussein, and now is Al-Imam Al-Mahdi. He sent his messages through them. He presents his example, his way of life, through the prophets who represent him. So when I go to Imam Hussein, I'm trying to emulate him. Through asking him also, through asking him, I'm trying to emulate him. This is why it is necessary to go to them. They are the gate to Allah. The Lord has a gate. This is why the Prophet himself, he says, when you want to ask Allah and you want him to pay attention to you, to listen to you, mention the name of Muhammad and Al-Muhammad. Say salawat, send salawat. If you want your dua to be accepted, one condition, beside of course purifying yourself, being sincere, being honest, before you ask him, God, I need this or that, say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, to get his attention. God always is tentative. La ta'khuduhu sunatun wala nawm. He does not, no slumber or sleep overtakes him. He always listens, powerful in seeing, in listening. But if you need to emphasize what you are saying, why you bring the name of Muhammad and Al-Muhammad? To make God aware of them. God is always aware of them, and aware of you, and aware of everything. To make yourself aware of them. To make yourself aware of their position, their influence, their importance in Islam. We cannot bypass them. Unfortunately, the Wahhabis, when they say one-on-one relationship, I have one-on-one relationship with God, and I can afford bypassing Muhammad, he's not relevant, he's dead, okay? I can only read the Quran. They are wrong. They need the inspiration. They need the Prophet Muhammad. They need his seerah. When God says in this book, وَلَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, you find in the Prophet a fine example. He did not say only for 23 years. After that, just dispose him. Recycle him. You don't need him anymore. Muhammad represents the values of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He represents the spirit of Islam. He cannot be disposed. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is always relevant. He was not only a messenger for a period of 23 years. He is Khatamul Anbiya, a messenger that he lasts in this life to the last minute, and also in paradise he is a messenger. His ministry does not expire, that they depose him, they bring someone else. So he's still relevant in my life. He's still relevant. And this is why I go through him, to make myself aware of him. Are you with me?
Yes, yes.
To make myself that Muhammad is a prophet who is my prophet, not only a prophet who lived during the 7th century, and he's no longer of a help or of an influence or an importance. This is the reason.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for that very comprehensive response there.
Does it make sense?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I was sort of listening as opposed to commenting, so no, it did make perfect sense. What I wanted to ask you was, we've got 15 minutes to go, so let's try and sum up. Perhaps we are in the month of Muharram, and we know that many individuals that look at Shia Muslims from the external perspective, from outside, would think, well, what are these guys doing? Many non-Shias, Sunnis in particular, may say, look, you're only meant to mourn for an individual for no more than 3 days. It's become very fashionable, even on other satellite channels. They say, look, we love Ahlulbayt alayhi salam too. We love Imam Hussein alayhi salam too. You know, but the Shias just overdo it. They go that one step too far.
Because they read part of the sentence, they don't read the other part. Just like when someone says, La ilaha, there is no Lord, and he does not continue, illallah. If you say only the first part, this is polytheism, this is shirk. When you say there is no God, no God, this is atheism, no God. But you have to say after that, in order for you to embrace Islam and faith, you have to say illallah. Those guys who say we have to mourn only for 3 days, they took the first part of the hadith, they neglected the second part, the continuation of the hadith. The hadith says, there is no excessiveness of mourning above 3 days, with one exception, إِلَّا الْجَزَعُ عَلَى الْحُسَيْنِ. And this is an authentic hadith. If your father, if a friend of you, any person dies, you are not allowed to mourn him, or to be excessive, too much mourning, too much weeping, screaming. It's not good. You have to have patience. Okay? You have to have stability. You have to have trust in Allah. We have one exception in this universe, and that exception, and for every rule there is an exception. For every rule in this universe, there is an exception. A man cannot walk, cannot cut the sea. Can you cut the sea? Go today to the English Channel and take a stick and start hitting it and tell it, get divided. It would not. No one can do that. But it happened. There was an exception for Moses. Only for a few hours, just a few hours. And maybe it would never happen. For every rule there is an exception. Okay? And or for the dead, can you go to a cemetery or anyone today and say to the dead, قُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ? Say all the du'as, you know, read the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, the Psalm of David. He would not. But there was a person who was an exception, and that was Jesus. He was able to do that. The same thing when it comes to the excessiveness of mourning. It's not good, it's not desirable, except for one person, and that person is Hussein, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, according to the hadith of the Prophet. The Prophet himself, how many times he cried for Hussein? 55 years before his martyrdom. You know how many times? 5 or 6 times. This is at least what is recorded in the history of Islam. Was it enough for him to do it once? Once. Only you weep. You remember Jibreel is telling you that he's going to be murdered. You get, you know, stressful, you get heartbroken. Weep for 5 minutes and wrap it up and go after your business. Why he did that many times? Why he did that when he was standing on the pulpit? Hussein was a baby. He went and he carried him. Why one day his companions saw him coming inside the masjid? His eyes were red. He was weeping. When they said, what's wrong with you, Ya Rasulullah? Something happened? Bad news? He said, Hada Jibreel. He was with me in the room while Hussein was baby playing. And he said, أتحبه? Do you love this baby? I said, of course. He said, إن أمتك ستقتله. Group of people who falsely claim, well, your ummah, your followers are going to murder him. And he's weeping. Why he wept at Hussein just before he died, the Prophet, again and again and again. He embraced him and he started weeping. Why? Why he did it many times? Was it enough to do it only one time? It was not enough. There is an excessiveness of weeping and lamentation for Hussein. Hussein is an exception. Besides, we are not. Some people think that the entire procession or session or lecture is nothing but tears. Tears are natural outcome, my friend. When you hear any sad story, you hear a sad story of a Hindu friend of you, Christian friend, an atheist friend. You hear his sad tragedy. You start weeping. This is not something that you have control over it. So when it comes to Imam Hussein, he's an exception. Our Imam, the 12th Imam, he says, لَأَنْدُبَنَّكَ صَبَاحًا وَمَسَاءً. I will mourn you day and night, non-stop. This is the tradition of our Imams and Prophet Muhammad. We are doing not bid'ah. This is not bid'ah innovation. This is sunnah. This is and the first one who wept for Imam Hussein was Prophet Muhammad, who we are supposed to follow him and follow his sunnah.
Sure, right. And linked to that misconception relating to mourning or not mourning for more than 3 days is the fact that the Shias beat themselves. How do you respond to that?
Beating is not beating. It's not beating. Beating has an intention to harm. When you beat someone, are you pleasing him? Make him happy? You are trying to hurt him. So we don't call it self-flagellation or beating. No. This is a gesture of sadness. In every culture, in every civilization, they have a way of celebrating or mourning something. I was in South Africa, and there was a funeral, and I saw some people dancing. I said, are they dancing? They said, no, they are mourning. You look at it as dancing, because you don't understand the culture here. But this is the tradition here. When they walk behind a coffin, they jump up and down as a gesture of mourning. For you it is dancing, but for them it is not. Each culture has a way of commemorating their leaders. So this posture or gesture is not hurting yourself. This is a gesture of mourning. And if it is being done in a moderate way, you are not physically hurting yourself. What's wrong with it? Did the Prophet say don't do that? Is it haram? Now, some people said the Prophet did not do this, then it is haram. If you do it, it's haram. Okay, the Prophet did not wear a watch. He did not have glasses. Okay, he did not have iPhone or a BlackBerry. Is it haram to use a BlackBerry? Is it haram to ride a car, a vehicle, an airplane, because the Prophet did not do that? The Prophet, it was not the time for these things.
The counter-argument to that, of course, is an innovation in worldly things is different exactly to an innovation in religion.
So still the Prophet, for instance, did not celebrate his birthday. He didn't celebrate his birthday. Now we are celebrating his birthday. We are not doing something wrong. We are not doing something wrong. What do we do when we celebrate his birthday? We praise the Prophet. We remember him. We mention his name. We try to be like him. We try to get inspired by him. He didn't say don't do that. He never said don't do that. So it's not an innovation, even if it is part of a religious ceremony. If it is not haram, it does not mean if the Prophet did not do it, it is haram. There are many things that the Prophet did not do, but it is not haram. He didn't say, as long as it does not contradict the Holy Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet, as long as it does not contradict these things, it's permissible. Actually, the rules, everything is permissible except what is stated. if stated otherwise. Everything is permissible. Everything is pure, except you know that this is najis, impure. And everything is halal and permissible, except otherwise. It is stated, either in the Quran or the Hadith. So when we come to anything, using the internet, no, let's say religious things, having a Fatiha ceremony. Someone's father dies, and he wants to receive the people for 2 days, 3 days. They come and give condolences. Is this haram because the Prophet did not have a special session for that? It's not haram. Fatiha ceremony, people don't dance there or drink. People sit there and recite Quran. There is something haram with Quranic recitation. It's not. The Prophet lived during a specific time, specific culture, specific behavior. Okay? So if that did not happen during his time, it doesn't mean that if it happens outside his time in a different fashion, it would be haram. He never said that. Religious, okay, the Wahhabi says religious. Ramyul Jamarat, stoning the Satan, the Prophet did that to a small pillar. Now go to Ramyul Jamarat, for 1 second you think you are in Las Vegas. You see the building, 5-story huge building, and they tell you go and do Ramyul Jamarat from the 5th story. Is this a religious issue or not? This is not a worldly issue. This is religious. Why do you go and do that? The Prophet didn't do that. They tell you yes, because now Muslims, we have a big number of Muslims. This is the necessity. The same thing for Masjid al-Haram. The Prophet did tawaf in a small area. Now you can do tawaf in the 3rd floor. The same thing for the sa'i. Why these things are part of the sunnah, it's okay, halal? Because it's the necessity. Even during the time of the Prophet, if we had 5 million pilgrims, the Prophet would do the same. He will expand. But because the pilgrims were only 100,000, let's say. So, we are, as long as you do not contradict the spirit, the teachings of Islam, whatever you do is halal. As long as there is no contradiction to the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Okay, thank you. We've only got about a few minutes remaining, regrettably, so therefore we need to sort of wrap things up. The whole topic that we're discussing this afternoon relates to Islamic unity, myth or reality. Of course, as an ummah, generally we strive that one day that the nation will be one, there will be unity, there will be minimum conflict. Do you feel that will ever actually transpire, and if so, when?
I do believe that this is going to be translated and it is going to happen, because if we believe in this book, the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us promises that yes, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. One day, the entire community of earth, this entire global village, is going to be united based on understanding. When people reach maturity, yes, they're going to do that, they're going to achieve that. I also believe even before the time of Al-Imam Al-Mahdi, people are getting mature, more mature. Yes, we are still having conflicts and fightings and division, but the more we get mature, more religious, more pious, more educated, the more we're going to achieve this goal and this dream. Though the road is very, very, very difficult. It's not easy. Some people are very pessimistic that I don't think that during my lifetime, neither during my grandson's lifetime, they're going to see Muslim being united. No, I don't go that far. I think that it is achievable, and we will say, God has promised us, and we will see that day where we can find, inshallah, Islamic unity and harmony among the believers of Islam. Not alone that, not only among the believers of Islam, the believers in Islam, even among other people. We're going to see the state where people are going to get together, understand each other, appreciate each other, and work together.
Sayyid Moustafa Al-Qazwini, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you also to our viewers. You've been watching Ahlulbayt Live on Ahlulbayt TV. There'll be a continuation of programs commemorating Muharram throughout the 10 days and of course beyond. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. For removing certain things from the Sunnah. So in both the traditions there are mechanisms to find what hadith is right and what hadith is wrong, rejected. And through the Sunnah of the Prophet, we know, through the lifestyle of the Prophet, through his history, through the details of his daily life, whether he was in peace at the city of Medina, or he was during a military excursion, a battle outside Medina. We know who stood with the Prophet and who turned against him, who was loyal to him and who was disloyal to him, who was faithful to him and who was not faithful. And I mentioned this, that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Surah At-Tawbah, in chapter 9, he says to the Prophet, "O Prophet, sometimes you don't know who's who. You do not know the reality of the people around you, some of them. Even I did not allow you to know. I am the only one who knows about them." See, to this extent, so that even the Prophet himself sometimes, not all the times, "La ta'lamuhum." God said there are hypocrites that even you, Ya Rasulullah, who's supposed to know everything, you don't know them. For a reason. For a reason we withhold their names from you. So this means that there were hypocrites. They are not entirely purified 100%. But through the hadith, through the seerah of the Prophet. The seerah of the Prophet was detailed in so many volumes, encyclopedias. So when you read it there, how do you know? Let me ask you this, Brother Ali. How do you know that this person is good or he's not good? How do you know that?
Well, you get it from...
You don't make a surgery and open his heart, and you don't do that. From his lifestyle, from his conduct, from his actions.
But this is a problem, isn't it? Because when you've got different versions of the seerah, so the Sunnis have one version that would suggest that certain companions are loyal and faithful, as you put it.
So you have to go after the correct one.
Yeah, but
nowadays, anything happens anywhere in the world. When it is reported, it's going to be reported in different ways. Okay? One of them says, no, the guilty side is that one. The other comes and says exactly the opposite. The smart person, okay, who wants to investigate, he has to go and listen to all and then try to find out through investigation. When it comes to crime, how do we know that this is guilty and that one is implicated and a criminal? It's through a very lengthy process. Bad-mouthing. Right. There is a difference between them. Bad-mouthing is to say bad words to someone, bad description, okay? But cursing is prayers, supplication, prayers, specific form of dua and supplication. You ask Allah not to bestow His mercy on such and such. And this is an Islamic tradition. This was performed by God Himself, by the Prophet himself, by the community of the believers. La'an is different than sab. La'an is cursing, meaning that may God not embrace you with His mercy. Sure. At-tardu min rahmatillah. While sab is bad-mouthing and swearing and maligning. This is what we should not do. Imam Ali said to his companions during sometime during the Battle of Siffin, when he saw them bad-mouthing Muawiyah, he said, no, do not bad-mouth him. إِنِّي أَكْرَهُ لَكُمْ أَن تَكُونُوا سَبَّابِينَ. But tell the people what Muawiyah did. That's enough. That's enough. Go and tell the people about what he did to Islam and to the Muslims. You don't have to bad-mouth him and say he's this and he's that and his mother is this and his mother, and use bad words. You don't have, this is not the ethics of Islam. So what you said specifically, let me address your question about Ziyarat Ashura. Ziyarat Ashura, when we say لعن الله ibn Ziyad or Ibn Marjana or Yazid or Muawiyah, we are asking the Lord because of what they did to Islam first, to the Prophet of Islam second, to the family of the Prophet of Islam third, to the city of Medina. Yazid made Medina free zone for 3 days. And this is not a Shia story. This story has been mentioned in every single history book in Islam. That Yazid, after the murder of Imam Hussein, his next achievement as a caliph was to send his troops from Syria. They entered the city of Medina. They made it free zone. Free zone means that you can steal, you can rape, you can kill, you can destroy. Nobody would stop you. 3 days. Okay? 10,000 of the memorizers of the Quran were murdered in these 3 days. Then after that, the following year, he attacked the city of Mecca. Kaaba was destroyed. So not only Islam was attacked, or the Prophet or his family, Mecca and Medina. What is left of Islam? Here I am saying, may God not embrace him with his mercy. Is this a crime? This is not a crime.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt Live. We're discussing the issue of Islamic unity. Is it a myth, or can it indeed be a reality? We are honored to have with us the renowned speaker and lecturer, Imam Said Moustafa Al-Qazwini. Said Moustafa Al-Qazwini, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For taking the time to be with us. Prior to the break, we were experiencing some technical issues. I understand we didn't have sound for about 10 minutes. So for the benefit of our dear viewers, we will try to summarize that which we discussed prior to the break. Said Qazwini, we were making reference to the fact that although the Quran and the Hadith may refer to the companions in a certain way, and the Shias adopt this understanding, and therefore their understanding is not contrary to the Quran or the Sunnah, the question that I put to you was the fact that when you have a difference of interpretation as to what the Quranic verse means and what the corresponding Hadith say, and when you have an issue or a situation where you have a companion who the Sunni brothers believe is wonderful and great and should be emulated, but where the Shias believe he is not wonderful, he is not great, and is not worthy of emulation, surely Islamic unity under such circumstances would be very precarious.
Yes, because the Holy Quran does not speak about details, who's who. Does not say that Mr. Fulan and Mr. this and Mr. that are hypocrites and bad. The Quran always sets the standards, general standards. Then we come and see which one applies to these standards and which one does not. And also there is a supplement to the Holy Quran, which is the Sunnah, the Hadith of the Prophet. And in the Sunnah of the Prophet, there is always room for fabrication. Therefore, there is a mechanism to purify and authenticate the sayings of the Prophet through ilm al-hadith, ilm al-rijal, ilm al-diraya. These are mechanisms that were created to discover and analyze, okay, the authenticity of what the Prophet said. There were lots of fabrications. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that, he said, this book, the Holy Quran, I'm going to protect it. There is no increase or decrease in this book. But when it comes to the Sunnah, it's open for additions, it's open. Still we can have unity with them and understanding, provided that we respect them. We respect them. We have nothing personal against them, okay? We try to talk to them nicely, and we should not curse those that they believe are infallible or sinless. Okay? In the same fashion that we think that Imam Ali is infallible, and he's truly infallible according to the Quran. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ 33 in the Quran. In the same fashion, others believe that this caliph and that caliph and this companion and that companion are infallible and sinless. Okay? Here, we should not curse. We should dialogue in a nice way. I always say that you could make the other side understand your point without being harsh, without cursing him. Say it nicely, politely, be firm. Don't compromise. Do not compromise. Speak the truth, Brother Ali. Speak the truth, say the truth. Don't conceal it. Don't be diplomatic, but be polite. There is a difference between lying, okay, and being polite. Lying, you are not telling him the truth, okay? But being polite, you are telling him the truth, but in a nice way.
Sure. You make reference that we should not curse, right? Now, the problem with that is, yes, perhaps we should not curse when it comes to lectures or on television, which we know, and we'll deal with such issues later on in the show. But the question is, we're in the month of Muharram. We know that it's highly rewarding to read supplications, the Ziyat of Ashura, for example, where clearly the Shias are cursing someone. And presumably, whoever this curse relates to is not something that the Sunnis will necessarily agree with. So what do we do? What do we do in the case of these supplications? Do we just do away with them, amend them, take some bits out?
Cursing is different than swearing. We have two things. We have to distinguish between them. Quran says, do not swear, but he did not say don't curse. Because the first one who was cursing is God himself in this book, in the holiest book, the Holy Quran. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَعَنَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ. This is a verse. أُولَٰئِكَ يَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَلْعَنُهُمُ اللَّاعِنُونَ. Certain people, God curses them, and people curse them. So cursing is not forbidden because it is different from swearing and process of investigation. So there are some people who investigated the history of Islam. They put the pieces together. When you investigate, it would not be ambiguous anymore. It will be very clear to you. We have now a book called As-Sahih min Sirat al-Nabi, the authentic. And the guy spent 40 years putting the pieces together. And then you will find out. You will find out that this is the life of the Prophet. This is exactly what he said. This is exactly what he did. Because there are lots of misconceptions that the Prophet said something, but when you go and investigate, you find out at the end, no, this story came after the time of the Prophet, attributed to the Prophet himself.
If we undertook such meticulous research, surely then unity would not be necessary, because the whole world, all non-Shias would become Shias, wouldn't they? The fact is that because people for whatever reason aren't willing or don't undertake this meticulous research, they believe that their understanding, based on their research, these companions, whatever it may be, are righteous. The Shias believe these guys are not righteous. We believe that they're worthy of emulation. We believe that they're not worthy of emulation, whereas the Sunnis may believe that they are worthy of emulation. So the fact is that, yes, you can go through this meticulous search, but if you were to do that, the likelihood is you'd probably become a Shia, and then unity would not be necessary in the first place. But let's assuming that
unity among the Shias themselves,
which we'll discuss.
Unity, even when you have your own family, you have to have unity. Unity not only with others, unity among ourselves first.
But what do we do in this scenario where you've got different interpretations?
Yes.
And people are saying, look, I like this guy because based on my interpretation, this companion is worthy of following.
We have a solution.
You don't like him.
We have a solution.
Is there a solution?
First of all, Ali Ridha, do you know that those who became Shia, they did not wake up in the morning and we saw a dream. God came to my dream and said, listen, change from this school to that school. Never. They went through the process of investigation. They reviewed their whole entire understanding of Islam. They started from zero. They went through the true history of Islam, true interpretation of the Quran, then they became Shia. So they found out the reality. Now, does this opportunity available for all people? No, no. Small minority, small minority. Now, what do we do with the rest who still believe that the true leaders of Islam is such and such and such? Okay?